Although Luton Town put up a good fight in the Premier League, they were unfortunately relegated back down to the Championship. And so I'm going to take over as their new manager. But as you know, this isn't going to be an easy job for me because of the challenge. First off, we have 10 seasons to win the Premier League. Not to mention, we are also aiming to win 3 domestic cup trophies. And possibly the hardest task of them all, we need to win any of the 3 European trophies. A tough ask when you consider the current Luton Town squad. So it's up to me to build a Luton side capable of winning all of these challenges, starting off in the Championship. It became apparent really early that financially this is going to be tough as well, with only 10% of any player sales going back into my transfer budget. And that's something that the board were not willing to budge on either, despite requesting and trying to persuade them myself. I do have some kind of budget already, but it's not the players coming in that I'm worried about. Realistically, we have a good enough team to get back into the Premier League because we've only just been relegated. I'm more concerned about getting wages off the books for when we eventually do go back up, and selling players that way. If we're not getting a percentage from that, then we're going to struggle in season 2 or 3 when we eventually get promoted. And so the only player I'm bringing in is a loan signing and a striker that will give us squad depth up front and a lot of pace as well. Tactically, I've landed in a 4-4-2 with just a defensive midfielder and an attacking one. That attacking one usually is going to be Ross Barkley, who's going to be exceptional for us this season. But the 2 strikers that we've got in Adebayo and our loan signing Nankam, I actually think are the 2 best for us to start because of the pace and strength that Nankam has, not to mention his 60 in aggression. He is a perfect pressing forward, and Adebayo is just a really good advanced forward with a lot of pace and strength that can finish a shot off. Mengi is another player I want to give a lot of game time to because he's young, he's only 22, he has a good potential for when we get back into the Premier League to be a lot better. But as you can see, picking without restriction, they don't necessarily go into our starting 11. However, at the start of the season, when I've been playing them every single game, it has definitely been working out. And we've been putting in some fantastic results that, to be honest, if we continue, will easily see us sail through back into the Premier League. And that's just what we want. So let's simulate season 1 with Luton Town in the Championship and see if we can bounce back into the top flight. Surprisingly, in this first season, despite us being in the Championship, we actually did really well in the domestic cups. Part of our challenge, of course, is to win 3, and we were only eliminated in the 4th round by Newcastle, who are a very good Premier League side, on penalties. And in the FA Cup, we did even better. We got past Spennymoor 7-1, past Ipswich Town 3-1, Brentford on penalties 2-2 after 90 minutes, and only losing to Tottenham in the quarter-finals of the FA Cup 2-1. Although our fantastic start in the Premier League did take a bit of a bump going into October and November, we continue to be quite consistent, and we all know the Sky Bet Championship is an unforgiving one, but you can still get away with a lot of losses, which we definitely took. However, we also did manage to win the league, only by 2 points ahead of Southampton, but Southampton and Norwich go into the Premier League alongside us. We were also right to lock in the likes of Adebayo and Nankam because both of them had fantastic goal contributions, getting 54 goals between them, with Adebayo absolutely being a wonderful striker for us this year, and Mengi has definitely developed and put in some good performances across the season. The board have given us a nice healthy budget that we can even alter if we need it more or less in the transfers or the wages, and I have already started bringing in some players who can help us out on the wings. Now, the rest of it, in financially, we've gone up to 25% of transfer revenue, but that still isn't going to help much if we decide to sell a player. 25% is nothing. Now, this summer was really difficult. Despite us having a bit of budget, I still needed to find quite a lot of players. And I started off with Jordan Larsson. He is the son of Henrik Larsson, and just like his dad, he's a decent striker. He's left-footed with a bit of pace, and we picked him up for £2.2 million from FC Copenhagen. Arguably our best signing of the window, though, was Stanis Pedrola. He is a Spanish winger, predominantly on the left-hand side. They were going to train to play more as a left midfielder, but he comes in as possibly our best player. He's fantastic. Physicals are great. We got him for £6 million from Sampdoria. He was at Barcelona's academy for a few seasons, so we know he's got the talent, and last season he even got 10 goals for Sampdoria. Right back was a position that I felt like we really needed to improve because this 4-4-2 relies on really good right backs, attacking ones, and Elias Jalur is very similar to the type of player that I really wanted, United, and he also came from FC Copenhagen, just like Jordan Larson. £11.75 million is kind of steep for the money that we were given for a right back, but I think the potential of selling him on for more or just having him for the remainder of our 10 seasons could be worth it. But the most important signer I wanted to bring in was a good centre-back, and Martin Vitic is the centre-back that I felt like we really needed. He's only 22 as well, from Czech Republic. He has great physical attributes, he's 6'4", good leadership attributes too, and we picked him up for just £7 million from Sparta Prague. That is a bargain. Our final signing that we made was Jota Silva, who turns out was a free transfer after leaving his club. He's 26 years of age. He gives us a lot of squad depth up front and is kind of Nankam's replacement. We haven't really brought one in yet, and he is very similar to him in the standard of that he has good aggression, good work rate, so for a pressing forward, he suits the mould, and he's really good at that in our squad compared to the rest of our team too. So he comes in on a free transfer. He was playing in Portugal before, hasn't hit the ground running just yet, but hopefully that can change as the season goes on. But we're trying to keep things rather familiar in terms of our tactic going into this season. Despite being in the Premier League, it's a very attacking tactic, but I felt like if we went a little bit more recluse and invited the pressure on, we'd be absolutely murdered. This team is not good enough for that. We're trying to rely on our strength, and that, unfortunately for us, is a lot in the attack and less in defense. Vitic and Mengi at the centre-back option. I'm going to lock in Mengi once again throughout the season. This team could be good enough to keep us up, but we're going to have a lot of luck. And so far, we haven't exactly got a lot of the luck that we needed. We picked up one good win, which was at home to, obviously, the other newly promoted side in Southampton, but we got absolutely battered by Everton and absolutely battered by Chelsea. So I think we need to forget about the challenges in terms of winning domestic cups this season, and we need to focus on just surviving in the Premier League. So let's hope our performances improve now we are back in the top flight so we can stay there. And as we got to January, the board have given us a little bit more money and topped up our budget for the rest of the season. But they also accepted a £28 million offer for Ogbene, despite us still only getting 25% of whatever came in, and he had a cracking start for us this season. So it was tough to replace him, and I brought in Amad Diallo from Manchester United for just £12 million. That unfortunately though didn't leave us with much left, and we spent most of it on Papi Guy for give us extra legs in the midfield. But surprisingly, by the end of January, we were holding our own in mid-table. The Cups were definitely not a priority for me this season, and we were even knocked out the third round by Bournemouth 2-0. However, in the FA Cup, we went on an amazing run, getting through the rounds comfortably until we got revenge on Bournemouth, followed by Spurs, and even knocking Wolves out in the semi-finals on penalties to give us a showdown with Manchester United in the final. And in the Premier League, we easily survived and even kept our top half finish, ending in 9th place. But could we win our first out of 3 domestic cup trophies with this FA Cup final to play? Well, we couldn't have asked for a better start because an own goal gave us the lead in the first half, and the other side of half-time, we actually doubled it at Wembley. However, Manchester United came back and 15 minutes later pulled a goal back through Mason Mount. And with the clock ticking down, a free kick was played back and Anthony was found in the box to equalise, sending the game to extra time. And it seemed our legs were exhausted, and down to 10 men after a second yellow card, Anthony Martial took advantage and won the FA Cup for Manchester United. I am absolutely gutted that we couldn't get our hands this early on onto one of the 3 domestic cup trophies that we needed for the challenge, but I still think this is an incredible season that we can be really proud of, because my aim was just to survive, and as you can see, we never dropped really into any kind of relegation scrap. But has the board decided to back us after a great season? Well, we got £16 million going into next season, and still only 25% of the revenue. So it's hard to determine where we're going to prioritise that £20 million roughly budget that we've got, because Jordan Larson got 19 goals, Adebayo got 14, Ross Barkley is still having a great season, but he's like 32 now. We've got some quality players, it's just what do we do to improve what we've done this season? After coming so close to winning the domestic cup in season 2, I'm reminded of how big of a task this is going to be to win the Premier League or even lift a European trophy with Luton. Especially because I managed to get them to raise the transfer revenue again, but only to 40%. Meaning, annoyingly, I still only got less than half the money when I sold Ryan Giles to Saudi Arabia for £32.5 million. And yet the transfers in, I still think were very good. I got in 2 left-backs in Maxime de Kuiper and Ian Matson, both on free transfers. I also brought in the French goalkeeper Alban Lafont. He joins us from Nantes for £7.25 million. But the player I spent the most money on is Dennis Hussein Basic from Germany. He has played pretty much anywhere on the park, but mainly as a centre midfielder. And this is my long-term Ross Barkley replacement. Gets forward whenever possible. Great physical attributes, including teamwork, work rates, the stamina, the natural fitness. He cost me £16.5 million. It was the majority of my budget. But I do think in the long run, he's going to be a great buy. We are sticking with the 4-4-2. However, I have slightly altered it. We've now got a ball-winning midfielder, a box-to-box, but a target forward up front. Still with the wingers, still with the attacking wing-backs. This could be slightly different in the fact that we won't be looking to press from the front, but maybe have more of a figure up there with Adebayo, but let's see how it goes. And I made those changes because the start of our season was absolutely dreadful with the tactic we used last year. Let's hope this season improves then and we manage to get somewhat close to the success that we had last season. Well, in the Carabao Cup, we had a nice easy run really, going all the way through to the quarter-final, where unfortunately we then faced Brentford, who knocked us out 2-1. In the FA Cup, despite winning 5-0 in the 3rd round, the 4th round was as far as we went, as we were battered by Nottingham Forest 3-0. However, the most important competition was the Premier League, and despite us having a terrible start, we managed to kind of salvage our season into that mid-table slot where we were last year, and again finished in 9th place, 54 points, 4 points off of Brentford, who are above us, just outside of those European spots. We could really do with qualifying for them very soon. The goals in our team was very much spread out, which some would say is good, but I'm kind of worried that we don't necessarily have an out-and-out goal scorer. Jota Silva picked up 14 goals, which was the most across the season, despite coming off the bench 29 times and only starting 12 games. That's why I'm slightly worried. Jordan Larson got 13 with the most starts. Carlton Morris again come off the bench and got 12. Adebayo was actually dropped down to 10 goals in 25 games, maybe possibly because we moved into that target forward. But Amad Diallo and Pedrola on the wings, they've been fantastic. 10 goals and 12 assists from Amad Diallo, 9 goals and 14 assists from Pedrola. The board have given us a lovely budget though of £51 million. However, on the finances, still only 40% of the transfer revenues. I'm going to try and have to ask them to increase that once again. The request was accepted, however, it only raised it to 55%, but at least we are over halfway. Adebayo left the club. He is 29 years of age now and he's gone to Norwich for 20 million, which is also where the only other player that we sold went to in Mengi, but for just 13.5 million after a disappointing couple of seasons for us. And to replace him at the back, we have the French defender Esteve joining us for £19 million from Montpellier. But it doesn't stop there because the midfield gets an upgrade too, with Ryan Gravenberch joining from Liverpool. Up front, we put our faith in a youngster, signing Romeo Benny, who scored 16 goals last season in the Swiss League for Basel. And finally, on deadline day, we signed Hansen Aron as a squad player from Werder Bremen. So after a stagnating last season, we changed to a 4-4-2 and added Libero, a pressing forward, and a change in midfield role too with the Mazzala. So let's just hope that these are the changes that we need to take Luton to the next level. And by the way guys, if you enjoy videos like this, make sure you press that subscribe button because soon even my dad's taking on certain clubs, just like 10 years with Birmingham City. That's coming up soon. So it's been 4 seasons and we're yet to have a domestic trophy, and that still continues. We beat West Brom in the 3rd round. 4th round we even knocked out Liverpool on penalties. Quarter-finals we got past Burnley 6-2. But in the semi-finals, we lost to Norwich, who just signed 2 of our players. And in the FA Cup, it was even worse. We couldn't even get past Southampton in the 3rd round. That's the first round that we actually enter, and we went to a replay. But our season has been saved because we finished in 8th place, meaning we get qualification for the Europa Conference League next season. And I don't have to tell you that that is a huge opportunity to bring a trophy to Luton Town. We won 17 games, losing 16, so we're still not quite where I'd want to be. But that is a huge performance. Pedrola had a very good average rating, coming off the back of the fact that he scored 15 goals and got 20 assists. This definitely worked out in terms of our results. Goals-wise, we're still spread out across the board, but the development from Diallo especially and Pedrola has been what's carried this team to the success that we just had this season. However, a slight drop in our transfer budget from last year down to 37 million, and we've still only got 55% of the transfer revenue made, so once again, we need to ask to see if they can increase that for season number 5. Once again, our request was accepted, but only raised slightly to 70%. And only one player left the club, with that being Jota Silva, who moved to Saudi Arabia for £25 million. But we spent the money very well, bringing in Stefan Bajcetic from Liverpool for the same price. David Zimmer was out of contract but stayed at his club, meaning we had to pay a very small compensation fee to bring him in. One of the things that I have been working on recently, though, is the staff, and especially the recruitment team. And this summer is definitely where that work paid off, because it allowed us to find some fantastic new wonder kids, including Hajduk that we found, who's Romanian midfielder, a very good player already, and he's just 18 years of age, and he cost £2.1 million. Also, since the Pentagon Challenge, I cannot help but have a look in Japan, and Akira Shibasaki is unbelievable. This guy plays as either an advanced forward or as a shadow striker, and he's perfect for the roles. He's only 19 years of age as well. What finishing and dribbling ability that he has, and he cost me £5 million. 2 goals, 2 assists, 2 man of the matches in just 5 appearances. Now, outside of those, there were some real players that we signed, like Mitska, who is just a backup goalkeeper for £2.4 million. Baturino, you've probably heard of, a really good centre attacking midfielder or left winger that we've brought in from Croatia on a free transfer from Zagreb. And finally, John Kennedy, who is a Fluminense striker, Brazilian, 26 years of age, good enough, I think. Can play quite a lot of different roles. So far, he hasn't exactly hit the ground running, and we did spend £15 million on him. But I still think it's worth it. We are going to keep the 4-4-2 that we were rocking with last season, with like the libero, the Mazzala, and the pressing forward. But I'm definitely sticking Shibasaki in as a player that is going to be nailed on every single game, because I want to see what happens when this guy gets a lot of game time. The development, I'm hoping, could be huge, and he could be either cashed in for a lot of money or become our best player for the next 5 to 6 seasons. So with our hopes pinned on these new signings, what will Season 5 bring us? Because this season gives us our first opportunity at a European trophy. But of course, we're still obviously chasing some domestic cups, and we've been knocked out of the Carabao Cup at the quarter-final stage on penalties by Leeds. And we were so close to getting to another final when Liverpool defeated us at Wembley Stadium in the semi-final 4-2. They went on to face Manchester City, who beat them 3-1 in the final. But in the Europa Conference League, we smashed through the league phase, only losing 1 game to Montpellier and picking up 5 wins in total, which meant we go straight into the round of 16, where we knocked out Vålerenga 3-1, into the quarter-final, where we defeated Rijeka 7-2. This could be it, because the semi-final, we defeated Atalanta to go into the final, where we play AZ Alkmaar. So can the Dutch side stop our 4-4-2 attacking tactics as we name a fully strengthened side? In a historic night as Luton Town reached their first European final. And we couldn't have dreamt for a better start as Romeo Benny scored in the first minute of the match off of Shibasaki's assist. And the Japanese striker stole the show on this night as he added a goal of his own on the 23rd minute, followed by his second and our third on the 28th. Second half, and Hajduk pinched a fourth from the corner, and AZ Alkmaar were blown away and could only pick up 1 goal in response. And that is the first challenge of the takeover complete, as Luton Town lift the European trophy in the 5th season. But we've got a lot to do if we want to complete the other challenges, especially considering we only finished down in 10th place in the Premier League. An annoying start to the summer as we lost Esteve to Saudi Arabia for £45 million after 2 really good seasons for us. Pedrola also left for Fulham for the same price. Romeo Benny went to Aston Villa for £20 million too. So to replace and improve those positions lost, we start off with Boulanger from Belgium, who only cost us £17 million. That was very cheap considering how much we paid for English centre-back Ashley Phillips, which was £55 million from Brighton. We needed another keeper, and Slonina cost us just £6 million. Up front though, a 21-year-old striker caught my eye called Juanjo Ortega, who we bought from Sevilla. We also picked up Grant Gallagher from Millwall and loaned him straight back for them for the rest of the season. A left back came in from Brazil for £10 million called Gabriel. And Edwin Poku is a rotation option that we signed for just £5 million from Gladbach. And finally, Hiroshi Makino from Japan, who I found at Kyoto Sanya, who I loaned back to them for the rest of the season. After spending all that though, the board have reduced our transfer revenue back down to 50% from 70%. With the more attacking options coming in, I decided to try a 4-3-3 with a right winger just to see how it played out this season. So let's get cracking and hopefully we can win a domestic cup this season. It is not looking good, guys, for the domestic cups because it's a quarter-final exit against Newcastle in the Carabao Cup, which is also only as far as we got in the FA Cup, as Manchester United knocked us out 2-1. However, we have just one game to potentially get a Champions League spot in the Premier League, and we have already reached the Europa League final. We might not be doing very well in the domestic cups, but somehow we just blitzed through the Europa League, winning 7 games out of 8, completely dominating the league phase, going straight into the round of 16, knocking out Everton, quarterfinals, knocking out Rennes, and you know how much I already hate them, and semi-final we picked up a win against Tottenham, who of course topped the league phase, and now we've got Roma in the final. And what a final it was. We went into extra time, beating Roma 6-4. It was 4-4 after 90 minutes, which is already impressive. And then Amad Diallo and John Kennedy both scored, and we lift another European trophy. Of course, getting us right into the Champions League, but we did finish in 5th place anyway, which probably would have given us a Champions League spot either way. That's progress, but we just need to either win that and start picking up some domestic cups, or we're going to fail this challenge. It's another £34 million in the transfer budget for next season, but with the only £11 million in the overall balance, I very much doubt they're going to give us much extra on top of the 50% of transfer revenue made. The board were not budging, and they rejected the transfer revenue increase request. So this summer, we only sold a couple of players because of this, and that was just to barely fund the players that we were bringing in. With the first being a 21-year-old Serbian goalkeeper who looks ready for the first team football already, and who we've only picked up for just £10 million. Also, we signed an Argentinian midfielder who has a lot of promise that we got from River Plate for £15 million. And finally, an upgrade in the pressing forward role with a young striker from Malaga for £9 million who scored 20 goals last season. Already, he's been enjoying his football here, linking up with the rest of the strike force as we rock the 4-3-3 again. But this 7th season is an important one for the challenge, because we are still yet to win a single domestic cup out of the 3 that we need. And yet the first thing that we come to see is that we had an incredible season in the Premier League, finishing in 2nd place, and we were somewhat off top position Man City, who actually I seen replaced their manager, putting Marco Rose, taking Carlo Ancelotti's job, but they are still going to be really difficult to chase when Erling Haaland is scoring 36 goals in a single season. Which is why it's not ideal when you actually come up against them in the cups, because they knocked us out of the Carabao Cup in the 4th round. Actually, they smashed us 6-1. Oh no, it's a horrendous defeat in the FA Cup though. Losing to Southampton, who are still in the Championship at this point, 5-3 in just the 4th round. We cannot win a domestic cup. Our first season in the Champions League, though, went really well. We only lost 1 of the league phase games, which was against Lyon. We drew 2 games against Leipzig and Porto and won 5, including beating Arsenal. And we had a 12-1 win against Sturm Graz. 12-1. Then, unfortunately, we skipped the knockout playoff round, go straight into the round of 16, and we're eliminated on penalties to Porto after a 4-4 aggregate score. However, technically, we did actually win the UEFA Super Cup, which is a European trophy. We beat Real Madrid 2-5 in that, which is fantastic. Luton Town beating Real Madrid. So overall, it's actually a really good season. Finishing 2nd behind Manchester City in the Premier League is huge progress. We just need to win a domestic trophy. However, squad-wise, it's looking great. 25 goals from Luis Miguel Rivera, who has developed into a monster in just 1 season. That is absolutely unbelievable. The rest of the side I'm hoping start scoring a little bit more goals. I mean, Shibisaki has done well in his development, but that's only 15 goals isn't enough in my opinion. Yeah, the rest of it, there's a lot of wanted in there, and we might actually be interested in selling players this summer, because although we only have a £17 million transfer budget, we've got 85% of the transfer revenue, which is easily the highest that we have had so far. So the Champions League campaign must have helped us in some ways. We used the summer to sell some of the names at their peak price, such as Gravenberch, who went to Saudi Arabia for £60 million, now aged 29. I was shocked the most, however, that we managed to get nearly £40 million for Hansen Aaron, who barely played much last season. So I went about finding players such as Stojakovic, who could help us from coming off the bench to score some goals. But there's bargains too, such as Michael Bolton, who's a phenomenal centre midfielder who cost us just £16 million from West Brom. Ramses Lima offers support for Matson at left back for just £5 million, and Nestor Sanchez is the final signing we made to offer up a bit of an option off the bench for that right midfield spot. Squad depth is going to be important if we want to win the Premier League and 3 domestic trophies in the next 3 seasons. So let's hope we have some longevity in those cup competitions this season in season number 8. While starting off in the Champions League, we didn't do too bad really. We finished in 11th place in that league phase, 5 wins and some unbelievable wins too, as an 8-0 in there, and only 3 losses against teams that you kind of would expect us to lose against, which meant we went into the knockout playoff round where we eliminated Dortmund 3-1 on aggregate, so another good result there. Into the round of 16, which was as far as we got, unfortunately losing to Atletico Madrid, who also beat us in the league phase. But of course, not very good in the Carabao Cup. A 2-1 loss to Arsenal in that quarter-final. We did alright, we were knocking out teams that we should be knocking out on the way, until we got to a team which is slightly better than us, and they went on into the final and actually went on to win the whole competition, beating Tottenham in that final at Wembley. In the FA Cup though, it's even worse. 3rd round we go through 4-0, but the 4th round we lose to Leeds United 4-1. Meaning we've got 2 seasons now to win 3 cup competitions. However, believe it or not, this tactic somehow took Luton Town to become Premier League winners. It's the part of the challenge I wasn't really aiming for, but we managed to do it in season number 8. Luton Town won the Premier League by 4 points above Manchester City. We lost 6 games twice against Manchester City. We drew 6 games, but we managed to win 26 of them. We didn't even have a top scorer in there. We had Shibasaki, who was high for the average rating. We had good clean sheets. It just all seemed to come together really well. It's just the cup competitions that we're really struggling in. But that part of the challenge is complete. That's right, winning the Premier League within 10 seasons is a challenge we can tick off. Now, goals-wise, 22 goals from each Ortega and Rivera, and Ortega's development has been absolutely incredible. He's unhappy because he wants a new contract. Gonna give him that. But transfer budget-wise, we've got roughly £35 million with a very low wage budget. However, 85% transfer revenue is made available, so if we do sell a player, we can put it straight back into the budget. So the loans, the debts are starting to accumulate to the point where we might actually better clear that in the next couple of seasons. Dennis Hussein Basic is the first player we sold, and he gave us a good £30 million back into the transfer budget. However, most of this season's spending was built off the back of Manchester United activating Hajduk's release clause of £113 million. And that's a transfer I was really gutted that happened. I really wanted to keep Hajduk and hopefully build a team around him, because he's probably the best right back in the world. So to replace him, I bought the best right back I could persuade to come to Luton Town, and he cost me £74 million from Nantes in the French league. This season, I've decided to go back to a 4-4-2 variation, and for that, we need left wingers again, so I bought Chelsea's Kendry Payet for £50 million. Now, I normally wouldn't change a Premier League winning tactic with Luton Town. However, that 4-3-3 does pick up a couple of freak results where you lose games, and you just can't afford to do that if you're looking to win a domestic cup. We need something that's a little bit more solid, and the 4-4-2 offers us that. So it's make or break for the whole challenge. We need to win a cup. But it isn't going to be the FA Cup, because Tottenham Hotspur have knocked us out in just the 4th round. We can't even get close to the semi-finals in this one at all. However, we've got to the final of the Carabao Cup. It's Chelsea who face us in that final, and if we don't beat them, we fail the whole challenge. We took the lead through a corner, however we were pegged back immediately at Wembley from Julian Alvarez just a minute later, but we kept going and scored a wonderful team goal and we win the Carabao Cup. Thank God we managed to pick up that win because that is our first domestic cup that we can add to our trophy cabinet, but we need 3 of them and there's only 2 competitions left next season. Now in the Premier League, we unfortunately went all the way down to 5th place after being champions last year and 10 points behind leaders Manchester City. Ortega did win the Golden Boot this year, which is great, but the Champions League is what I'm most impressed with, and we were so close to getting to the final because Manchester United knocked us out 9-7 on aggregate after we won the first leg to go on to lose to Barcelona in the final. Goals-wise, this was much better as well, with both Ortega and Rivera getting 30 or above, and a good amount of assists too, with the backups still getting a good amount of goals as well. Really happy with that. I locked in Michael Bowen to play centre midfield, and it definitely paid off. He did really well this season. Wants a new contract, he's gonna get it. And transfer budget wise, we've got roughly £60 million, a high wage budget if we want to change it around a little bit. And financially, we're doing all right. Still 85% of transfer revenue. Debts aren't going up though, so probably won't clear that. I ain't too worried though, as we finally got one of the 3 domestic cups won before the final season. There were bigger problems for Liverpool as they went into administration and have been deducted points for this upcoming 10th season. Transfer-wise, Stojakovic kicked off that he wanted some more game time and he decided to leave and we sold him for 30 million. Gabriel also didn't see much game time in the last 2 years and he left for 23 million. A lot of players have been leaving on a free transfer behind the scenes, but Pinyev has just joined us for free. And we only spent money on one player, and that was Martin Antonioli from Liverpool, as the Argentinian centre-back cost us close to £100 million. And he does go into this team, however we are kind of changing around some of the roles. We've put in a half-back in, we've put Boulanga on a libero on support because look at him, he's unbelievable. And now I think we put up a side here which attacking-wise we're going to be devastating, but Bajcetic and Boulanga switching over defensively could be great. So the 10th and final season is a massively important one. Let's see what happens. Well, it's another Carabao Cup final and such a huge opportunity to win it because Norwich have got into the final. They're in the Premier League, but I feel like this is kind of a gimme for us. We've knocked out the likes of Arsenal en route and Manchester City, who we beat 6-0. We should definitely be favourites to beat Norwich. I mean, I definitely underestimated them a little bit, but we did pick up the trophy after extra time. A 2-0 result, and this is what I mean about this tactic. Defensively, we were solid. The fact that we scored 6 against Man City without even conceding, and they won the league recently, I just was very confident. I just hoping that we did it a little bit more comfortably than 2-0 after extra time. Nonetheless, it's a 2nd out of 3 domestic cup wins to complete the challenge, with the FA Cup being the only chance remaining. And right now, we're in the semi-final. We've got to defeat Chelsea to go on to face one of the Manchester teams. And we did it! We defeated Chelsea 3-0. I told you this team is so good defensively now. But the final, anything can happen. We've got to play Manchester United. Because after already winning the Premier League and a European trophy, we cannot afford to lose. As we are just so close to completing this challenge, and with some recognisable faces, including the £113 million right back Hajduk in Manchester United's side, they stand in our way of completing this 10-year challenge with Luton Town. After a tight half hour, the deadlock was finally broken when Hugo Pearce scored from the inside left position. It stayed 1-0 till half-time, but 5 minutes after the break, it was that guy Pearce from Manchester United who scored a second. We weren't out of it just yet though, and Bajcetic scored a beautiful volley to make it 2-1. But we failed to capitalise, and United carved us open one last time for Rasmus Højlund to score in the 91st minute. And just like that, our 10-year challenge with Luton Town is ultimately a failure in terms of what we set out to do, but I think we built a fantastic team either way, which you can take a look at for yourself on the channel membership page or on the Patreon as the save file goes up there. And if you enjoyed this, make sure you subscribe for more, and on screen you can click to see how I completed the Pentagon challenge.